I still remember that morning like it happened yesterday. I was leaning against the coffee machine, swirling a splash of almond milk into my latte, when Dominic, the new CEO and heir to the company's legacy, walked in. He didn't smile or greet me, he just stared as if I were invisible. "Emma, I need you in my office." "Now," he said, his tone leaving no room for debate. I had spent over a decade building the client relations department from scratch, negotiating hundreds of contracts and training most of the team now waiting outside his office, but none of that mattered. His father, Mr. Harding, had built the company with grit and loyalty. Dominic had inherited the title and apparently believed it gave him the right to play God. I followed him, my chest tight with tension. He didn't even sit down. "You're fired," he said, voice flat, emotionless. "We don't need lazy people dragging this place down." I blinked, thinking it must be some twisted joke. "Excuse me?" I asked. "You heard me," he replied, casually flipping through papers like deciding what to have for lunch. "Pack up your things and leave. Effective immediately." I stared at him, stunned, heart pounding. I wanted to shout, to defend myself, to demand answers, but instead, I forced a calm, polite smile. "Understood," I said. "Have a nice day, Dominic." Head held high, I walked out, trembling inside. My teammates glanced at me, sensing something was wrong. A few began to stand, ready to ask questions, but I shook my head subtly. "Don't make this harder." I packed my desk in silence. Driving home, memories of 11 years flooded me. Late nights, holidays spent at work, holding back tears after my divorce, giving everything to this company. And now, I was dismissed as if I were nothing. Yet, I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was curious. That question haunted me all night. Something about Dominic's careless confidence didn't sit right. The timing was strange, too. We were about to close one of the company's largest contracts, a deal I had spent 6 months preparing, and I knew the client inside out. I had even booked the final review meeting for Friday. And now I was gone. Had he even looked at the contract details? The next morning, just after 9 a.m., my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, unsure if I could handle another shock, but curiosity won. "Emma, it's Mr. Harding," a familiar voice jolted me. The real CEO, the man who had hired me 11 years ago after a single interview. "Why the hell did you pack up and leave? What happened?" I swallowed. "Your son fired me." Silence. Then, with a sharp inhale, "Yesterday, he said you were lazy and not needed?" I explained. There was a long pause, then he spoke slowly, trying to stay calm. "Emma, did he read your contract?" I frowned. "What do you mean? He's supposed to finalize the Kingswell deal today, isn't he?" "Yes. And Emma, he didn't. He has no idea. That contract has a clause I insisted on after the last acquisition disaster. You're not just the account manager, you're the only authorized negotiator for the Kingswell deal. Legally, ethically, practically, he can't close it without you. The deal will fall apart." A slow-burning realization hit me. Dominic had no clue what he'd done. And that's when something shifted inside me. The betrayal still stung, but now I felt something else entirely. Control. He had pulled the trigger too quickly, and now the gun was pointed at himself. Mr. Harding hung up, leaving the fury palpable through the silence. I sat motionless, coffee gone cold, staring at nothing. 11 years, and it came down to a spoiled, impulsive man-child playing CEO. Part of me wanted to storm the office just to watch the fallout. Another part, the one that had endured endless overtime and swallowed my pride countless times, wanted to let them burn. At 10:13 a.m., the first call came, Dominic. I let it go to voicemail. Minutes later, calls kept pouring in, reception, legal, accounting. My phone buzzed relentlessly, lighting up like a Christmas tree, but I didn't answer. The voicemail blinked. I tapped it open. "Emma, it's Dominic. There was a misunderstanding yesterday. I might have acted too fast. We need you back. It's urgent. Please call me." Urgent. Not sorry. Panic disguised as politeness. I sipped my cold coffee, unmoving. At 10:32, my phone buzzed again, a number I hadn't saved in years. Nicole, a former colleague. "Emma, you won't believe this," she whispered. "Dominic just got chewed out by his dad, in front of everyone." Mr. Harding slammed the Kingswell contract on the table and asked one question. "Did you read this before firing Emma?" Dominic tried to bluff about new directions and role reevaluations, but Mr. Harding didn't buy it. He flipped to the clause we had always insisted on, the one naming me the sole negotiator. That clause had a reason, and suddenly the whole office knew it. Except Dominic. Nicole paused, her voice dropping to a whisper over the phone. Evelyn, he looks pale. Ghost pale. He just realized he's the reason the Kingswell deal is about to collapse. I exhaled slowly. And what did Mr. Harding say? She hesitated. He told him that if the deal falls through, his position here becomes negotiable. I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. That was the first crack in Dominic's armor. I don't know what you're planning, Nicole added, but whatever it is, you have the upper hand now. I ended the call with a soft thank you and gazed out the window. The skyline was quiet, indifferent to human chaos, as it always was, a small comfort. At 11:15, a message pinged from Mr. Harding himself. Evelyn, I sincerely apologize for what happened. Please come in, not just for the deal, but so we can talk privately. Tempting, yes, but I wasn't ready to walk back in like nothing had happened. This wasn't just about a contract. It was about respect, trust, and the 11 years I had poured into this company, years that couldn't be replaced by a panicked phone call. Still, something stirred inside me. I wasn't petty, but I wasn't weak. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. I picked up my phone and sent a message. I'll consider returning to finalize the Kingswell deal, but only under specific conditions. I'd like to speak with Mr. Harding directly beforehand. By the time I arrived just past noon, I had changed out of my pajamas and prepared myself mentally. I didn't use the employee entrance. I walked through the main lobby like a guest, a deliberate move to draw attention. Everyone knew I had been fired the day before. My return wasn't just quiet, it was a statement. The receptionist stood immediately. Miss Harris, Evelyn, she stammered. Mr. Harding is expecting you. Right this way. As I followed her, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations paused, eyes lifted from desks, and a quiet tension hung over the building, as if it were holding its breath. Mr. Harding stood at his office door when I arrived. He nodded. Evelyn, thank you for coming. I nodded back, but didn't extend my hand. He stepped aside, letting me walk in. We sat across from his massive oak desk. He closed the door, leaned against it, and sighed. I made a mistake, he began. A big one. I gave my son too much authority too quickly. I wanted him to prove himself, but I didn't expect him to burn bridges before even learning to build them. I remained silent. Sitting down, his tone softened. What he did to you was unprofessional, disrespectful, and jeopardized a deal we've worked over 6 months to secure. I nodded slowly. Yes, it did. I read the contract again this morning. Every word confirms you had full autonomy over the Kingswell account. Legally, the client won't recognize anyone else as our representative. That clause was put in after the Steel Ridge debacle. I managed the fallout then, too. His eyes met mine. You didn't deserve what happened. I'd like to offer your job back with full authority to finish the deal. Whatever conditions you need, we'll make them work. There was sincerity, even regret, in his tone. This wasn't just about the contract. It was about leadership, accountability, and dignity. I'll return, I said, but I want everything in writing, a revised contract, clear autonomy over Kingswell, and no interference from Dominic. He nodded immediately. Done, I added, voice firm, and this can't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. Silence followed. Then a slow, thoughtful nod. You have my word. I stood. The moment I stepped out, Dominic was standing down the hall, arms crossed, pretending to talk with a junior executive. His eyes locked on mine the second I appeared. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I walked straight past him, and I swear I saw the exact instant he realized his control was slipping. By 1 p.m., the boardroom was ready. The Kingswell team had arrived. 30 minutes before the meeting, I reviewed the documents one last time. Their CEO, Mr. Said, was sharp, no nonsense, and valued trust above all. Any hint of internal chaos would make him walk away. As I placed the printed translation of the final terms on the table, I caught sight of Dominic pacing outside the glass walls like a caged animal. Mr. Harding intercepted him. Their muffled voices escalated until Mr. Harding's hand shot up, silencing him. Dominic's face turned crimson. He glanced at me with a mix of rage and humiliation, then walked away. That was the last I saw of him that day. At 1:30 sharp, Mr. Said entered with his aides. I greeted him in Arabic, and for the first time he smiled. You remembered, he said warmly. Respect goes a long way. The meeting went flawlessly. 2 hours later, we shook hands and signed the deal. After they left, Mr. Harding approached me, relief written across his face. "You saved us," he said. "I owe you more than an apology." "You owe your company a leader," I replied, "one who knows the difference between power and responsibility." He didn't argue. That evening, walking to my car, the tension I'd carried for 48 hours finally lifted. I had returned not as an employee, but as someone who understood her value and demanded it be recognized. Ryan, Dominic may have been quiet today, but men like him don't disappear. They retreat, then they retaliate. By the following week, the Kingswell deal made headlines, a historic cross-border partnership. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone at the company knew who had sealed it. My inbox flooded with quiet congratulations, from juniors I'd mentored to managers who once ignored me. The office mood lightened. Smiles, laughter returned. Mr. Harding made it clear. Dominic was no longer involved in high-level decisions. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Small things started to happen. Marcus had always played his games in the shadows, and now his tactics were turning more dangerous. First, my reimbursement for the Cairo trip stalled without explanation. Then, proposals I had submitted came back unsigned, stripped of approvals. Next, an email I never wrote, sent from my address, landed on a partner's desk, riddled with false numbers. Thankfully, Kareem, the partner in question, trusted me enough to call before reacting. But the damage had already begun to seed doubt. I escalated it to IT, but their answer chilled me. No hack, no breach. This had been done internally. That's when I knew Marcus wasn't trying to get me fired anymore. He wanted me to unravel, to lose credibility piece by piece until I either quit or was deemed a liability. Classic corporate sabotage. I had seen this before, years ago in my first job. Back then, my director had waged war the same way. Not directly, but with cuts so subtle they left no trace. Remove resources, delay approvals, question competence in hushed tones. One day, the target simply disappears. I wasn't 22 anymore. I wasn't going to vanish. I logged everything, timestamps, discrepancies, emails. I even kept a private journal, handwritten entries no system could erase. One evening, as I passed the glass-walled conference room, I heard his voice, too loud for privacy. "She's unstable," Marcus was saying. "Erratic since she came back. I don't think she's fit to handle high-stakes clients." Another voice, a junior exec, pushed back, "But she closed the Almera deal under impossible pressure." Marcus scoffed. "Luck. We can't build strategy on luck." The words slithered into me, cold and calculated. He wasn't just sabotaging my work. He was rewriting my reputation. That night, I stayed late, staring at the city lights when Victor, the CEO, stepped in quietly. He dropped a folder in front of me, my revised contract, every clause we had agreed to in writing. "I've also launched an internal audit," he said. His voice carried the fatigue of a father, not a leader. "Too many irregularities." I stared at him. "You knew." He met my eyes. I needed to see how far he'd go. He didn't say Marcus's name, but we both knew. "You're protecting him," I accused. He shook his head slowly. "No, I'm protecting the company. I just don't know if it's too late for one of you." The audit spread through the office like smoke. Conversations dropped to whispers when I passed. Some smiled politely, others avoided my gaze. Truth was dangerous here. Sometimes it brought justice. More often, it buried people alive under paperwork and polite exits. When the auditors finally called me in, the room looked like a crime scene, walls covered in timelines, servers buzzing with data. David, the lead investigator, cut straight to it. The false emails? Traced to shared workstations. Someone had your credentials. Always your name, always tied to communal machines. My stomach tightened. He hesitated. The access patterns match with Marcus's assistant. A quiet confirmation of what I already knew. Sabotage. Systematic. "So what happens now?" I asked. David's expression hardened. "Mr. Victor wants the findings presented directly to him. No filters," I said evenly. "Then I'll be there." The next morning, the boardroom felt like a stage. Victor stood by the windows, waiting. The auditors lined the table. Marcus arrived late, grinning, phone in hand. When he saw me already seated, the grin faltered. "She doesn't belong here," he snapped. Victor didn't turn. "She's here at my request." Marcus stiffened. "This is confidential." Victor's voice cut like steel. "Then you should have kept it clean." And just like that, the mask began to crack. "It should have stayed that way," I said, my voice calm but sharp, cutting through the air like glass. when you used company resources to fabricate emails. Marcus scoffed, forcing a laugh that didn't quite land. That's ridiculous. David, the lead auditor, didn't flinch. We've traced multiple login attempts tied to your assistant's account, all of them connected to irregularities targeting Ava's work. The timeline is clear. For the first time, Marcus's carefully crafted smirk began to crack. You're reaching. She's just bitter about being let go. I didn't look away. You didn't let me go, Marcus. You sabotaged me. And you nearly destroyed the biggest partnership this company has landed in 5 years. That was when Mr. Caldwell finally turned from the window. His voice was low, but it carried more weight than a shout. I gave you a chance, Marcus. More than one. And you've done nothing but tear down the people trying to build something real here. Marcus tried to recover, but the bravado slipped from his face. This isn't what you think. No, Caldwell interrupted. It's worse. The room fell into a heavy silence. Caldwell stood, straightening his shoulders. The board will review the findings. Until then, you are suspended, effective immediately. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came. His eyes darted to me, no longer full of arrogance, but disbelief. For the first time, he realized none of his tricks could save him. He turned and walked out without another word. I stayed behind, my pulse steady. Caldwell let out a long breath, the lines of his face deepening. I failed him, he admitted softly, as a leader and maybe as a father. You can't lead someone who refuses to grow, I said, but you can lead this company. You still have that choice. His gaze met mine, and after a moment, he nodded. 2 weeks passed before the storm fully broke. Marcus's suspension became a termination. The report was damning. Emails fabricated, files erased, approvals sabotaged. There were no lawsuits, no press releases, just a quiet exit. But the whispers spread, as they always do. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt calm. Not victorious, just steady, like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath too long. Then, one late afternoon, Caldwell called me into his office. A folder sat unopened on his desk. I've thought a lot about what's happened, he said, and what kind of company I want this to be moving forward. I didn't speak. He continued. You've shown more leadership in the past month than most executives do in a career. You protected our most important client, kept your composure in public humiliation, and endured sabotage without losing your integrity. That's the kind of person I want helping run this company. He slid the folder toward me. Inside was a promotion letter, Executive Director of Client Strategy. A seat at the table I'd never expected to occupy. I looked up, startled. I didn't ask for this. That's why you deserve it, he said simply. I hesitated, then gave a slow nod. If I accept this, I want a say in how we rebuild. I don't want a title. I want to change the culture. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. That night, I sat in my temporary office, staring at the blank nameplate on the door. For years, I had worked in silence, putting out fires, saving deals, taking no credit. Silence had nearly cost me everything. Now, I understood. Silence was not strength. I had been underestimated, sabotaged, and dismissed. But not defeated. In the weeks that followed, I reshaped the department. I reinstated people who had been unfairly pushed out, created an anonymous reporting system, reopened lines of communication. I made time for younger employees, the ones who whispered, "How did you stay strong?" You don't always get to choose the battles, I told them, but you always get to choose who you become while fighting them. As for Marcus, last I heard he was applying to smaller firms out of state. His reputation followed him. Some said Caldwell shielded him from a public scandal, a final act of mercy from a father to his son. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. One afternoon, passing the glass conference room where the Kingswell negotiations had once taken place, I paused. I remembered the sabotage, the lies, the late nights, the victory. But the real turning point hadn't been the deal. It was the moment I walked out of Marcus's office, smiling, refusing to beg. That was when everything changed. Not because I won, but because I remembered what I was worth. And I vowed never to let anyone, boss's son or not, take that from me again.